Hello, it's midnight and you're tuning into Nightline with me, Raymond Goh. The top stories. Malaysia's 2020 economic situation to be far better than 2019, says Lim Guan Eng. And nationwide water supply crisis is expected to be resolved in the next 5 years. Thanks for joining us. Malaysia's economic situation will improve this year. The finance minister who expressed this confidence said this will be coupled with increased allocation for government spending. Lim Guan Eng's confidence was based on 5 reasons: rise in commodity prices, easing of the trade war between the United States and China, increase in government spending, institutional reforms, and new initiatives to pump funds into the market. The finance minister, speaking to the media in Georgetown, Pulau Pinang on Sunday, said the nation's economic situation in 2020 will be far better compared with last year.
International credit ratings agencies reaffirm and maintain our credit ratings, our sovereign ratings. Sungguhpun kita telah dedahkan bahawa kedudukan fiskal sebenarnya bukanlah seperti baik yang digambarkan oleh kerajaan lama, kerana mereka banyak menyembunyi skandal-skandal kewangan daripada YNDB.
Lim was commenting on a study by the Merdeka Center which found that 61% of the voters were concerned about the country's economic situation. He said there would be an increase in government spending this year because some allocations were stalled last year due to disbursement issues. Lim added that the government had drafted a 3-year plan to restore and stabilize the country's finances and that the plan would end next year. Malaysia has offered to extend necessary assistance to Australia to fight the bushfires raging across the country. Datuk Sri Dr. Wan Azizah Wan Ismail said the assistance includes deploying the National Disaster Management Agency NEDMA and Special Malaysia Disaster Assistance and Rescue Team SMART personnel and assets to help Australian firefighters to put out the devastating bushfires. The Deputy Prime Minister, in a statement on Sunday, said the government of Malaysia also expressed its deepest condolences to the victims, their families, and all those affected by the bushfires. Foreign Minister Datuk Saifuddin Abdullah also tweeted that Malaysia stands ready to assist Australian efforts to overcome the disaster. He added that Malaysians' thoughts and prayers were with everyone affected by the disaster. Meanwhile, the Australian High Commissioner to Malaysia, Andrew Guletin, had replied to the tweet thanking Malaysia and the disaster was not over yet. Guletin also praised Malaysians for their generosity and sympathy towards the situation beleaguering his home country. Worldwide Fund for Nature WWF Australia said 1 billion animals would have died from the infernos that have swept across eastern Victoria and southern New South Wales states. Meanwhile, skies turned blood red above parts of southeast Australia on Sunday as residents sought refuge from deadly bushfires, and a senior firefighter described the previous 24 hours as one of our worst days ever. Photographs of Pambula in the state of New South Wales showed an eerie, smoke-filled landscape with deserted streets illuminated by an otherworldly blazing red sky. About 30 kilometers south, blood-red skies loomed over the town of Eden, with hundreds of residents seeking shelter on the beach on police advice. Many houses have been destroyed in the area, and officials said they feared there would be fatalities. NSW Rural Fire Service reported a total of 146 fires are burning across the state, with 65 uncontained. It said about 2,700 firefighters were tackling the blazes, and the conditions have eased on Sunday. In the meantime, Australia's flag carrier Qantas cancelled all flights to and from the country's capital, Canberra, on Sunday due to smoke and hazardous weather conditions. Canberra smashed its heat record of 80 years on Saturday, reaching 44 degrees Celsius. The current condition had also forced the Australia Defence Force to significantly increase its support in fighting the massive fires. It has called up 3,000 Army Reserve Forces and others with specialist capabilities and provide aircraft, ships and its largest vessel, HMAS Adelaide, with helicopter landing capabilities. The nationwide water supply crisis is expected to be resolved in the next 5 years. Water, Land and Natural Resources Minister Dr. Xavier Jayakumar said to achieve this, the cooperation from state governments and other relevant parties is essential.
Kerajaan pusat sedia sekarang dengan perbelanjaan ini dan juga kita telah masuk di dalam rancangan RMK 12 untuk pastikan di dalam 5 tahun yang akan datang kita akan selesai masalah ini. Saya sedia untuk kita meneruskan dengan program yang kita telah rancang, tapi kita kena ada kerjasama dari semua negeri dan kefahaman dari semua negeri.
He said this when attending a restoration, reclamation and rehabilitation program through planting of trees at the Botanic City Park in Klang on Sunday. He added that the main challenge of the government to improve the country's water supply system is to get sufficient allocation and develop a complete infrastructure. He noted that efforts to increase the margin of treated water reserves in some states, especially in Selangor, Pulau Pinang and Johor Bahru, should also be intensified. Commenting on the issue of water tariff, the minister said that he would continue to discuss with states which are not ready to implement the adjustment.
Tak ada negeri yang kata tidak mau naikkan harga, tapi ada negeri yang sudah setuju. Itu kita akan bawa sekarang kepada kabinet dan kelulusan, dan saya akan umumkan ini di dalam masa terdekat. Negeri-negeri yang belum sedia lagi untuk buat demikian, kita akan terus bincang dengan mereka semua.
He was commenting on the statement by Negeri Sembilan Menteri Besar Aminuddin Harun on Saturday, guaranteeing that the water tariff in the state would remain for 5 years. Last December, Dr. Xavier said that all states had agreed to raise water tariffs this year, while the rates would be finalized after discussions had been held. Owners of food premises are not allowed to provide a special smoking room for customers within their premises. Deputy Health Minister Dr. Lee Boon Chye said a special space could only be created outside 3 meters of the dining area. Dr. Lee said he had never discussed the special smoking room, but instead discussed with the Housing and Local Government Ministry on a proposal for a special space for the disposal of cigarette butts.
Kalau di luar 3 meter itu bukan bidang kuasa kementerian lah, itu bidang kuasa PBT. Tapi bila setiap restoran dia mesti ada lesen beroperasi restoran mengikut lesen PBT. Jadi mengikut lesen PBT, kawasan operasi restoran ini, dalam kawasan operasi restoran tidak boleh ada yang merokok, termasuk 3 meter daripada sempadan. So kalau tempat operasi ini 3 meter, dalam lingkungan ini tak boleh.
Dr. Lee was speaking to the media after a health and blood donation campaign at the Batu Gajah Parliamentary Service Centre on Sunday. The nationwide smoking ban from January 1st covers all restaurants, eateries, including food trucks and on-board and train restaurants across the country. Meanwhile, commenting on the increase in cancer cases, as Health Director General Dr. Noor Hishan Abdullah recently revealed, he said awareness of early screening is important for addressing cancer progression.
Satu aspek adalah dari segi saringan awal supaya kita boleh mengesan kanser di peringkat awal. Jadi dari segi saringan awal, apa yang kita lakukan di klinik kesihatan, kita bekalkan untuk mammogram untuk wanita, ada pap smear untuk wanita juga, banyak untuk wanita. Pap smear, ada mammogram. Dan kita juga buat saringan untuk mereka yang perlu periksa najis, sama ada ada darah ke tidak. Untuk sebab colorectal antara kanser yang paling utama.
According to the Health Ministry's report, the number of new cancer cases recorded in Malaysia over a period of 5 years from 2012 to 2016 has increased to 115,238 from 103,507 cases recorded in the corresponding period of 2007 to 2011. The government is assuring the public that shrimps sold locally are safe for consumption, despite previous news reports of antibiotics used in shrimp farms. Deputy Agriculture and Agro-Based Industries Minister Sim Zin, in a Facebook posting, said the Department of Fisheries has a stringent monitoring system for the farms with regular checks and enforcement done. In a visit to a shrimp farm in Kuala Langat, Sim shared most shrimp farmers have stopped using antibiotics since 10 years ago and have turned to probiotics and better farming practices. This is to ensure that the shrimps farmed can be exported. With modern farming techniques, mortality rate in the shrimp farm is as low as 5 to 10%. Commenting on news report that the United States Food and Drug Administration, US FDA, had placed shrimp exporters on an alert list and had banned some shrimp imports because of antibiotic use, Sim said that many of the companies listed were no longer in operation, and the list was reported from 2009 to August 2018. Most of the companies that were blacklisted were also dealing with transshipment, and no new local companies have since been added to the list. The selection of the new education minister will be undertaken based on the spirit and manifesto of Pakatan Harapan PH. PKR President Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, however, stressed that by convention, it is up to the Prime Minister to fill the vacancy based on his wisdom.
Tetapi ini terserah kepada PM dan pimpinan PH kalau nak adakan perbincangan. Semangat Pakatan Harapan, manifesto Pakatan Harapan. Itu yang lebih utama.
He was speaking to the media after attending the UPSR 2016 to 2019 Tamil Schools Excellence Student Award ceremony in Sri Kembangan, Selangor on Sunday. To a question on whether his name had been put forward for the post, Datuk Sri Anwar said that his name is not included in the list. Meanwhile, Datuk Sri Anwar said Dr. Mazli Malik has a bright future in politics as long as he has the determination and is consistent in his fight. The PKR President also drew parallels between his own political roller coaster ride and Dr. Mazli's when asked about the latter's future.
Banyak orang yang berhenti patah balik. PM pun berhenti patah balik. Saya pun berhenti patah balik. Jadi bukan soal itu, ini soal kesungguhan, konsisten dia dalam perjuangan.
He added Dr. Mazli had instituted quality education reforms in his short stint as minister, but his efforts were mostly overlooked. Instead, Dr. Sri Anwar said critics focused only on the few controversial decisions by the young Bersatu politician.
Salam tahun baru 2020 kepada semua. Pertama sekali saya ingin ucapkan terima kasih.
The Election Commission, EC, on Sunday issued 36 postal ballot papers for the Kimanix parliamentary by-election scheduled on January 18th. EC Chairman Dr. Azhar Azizan Harun, in a statement, said that the issuance of the postal ballot papers began at 11 a.m. and was carried out by election staff at the Beaufort District Office. Dr. Azhar said of the total, 35 postal ballot papers were for election workers and EC officers, while the other one was for an absentee voter who is a civil servant working abroad. He said there was no application from postal voters in the category for Form 1B, or Malaysian citizens abroad, and the category for Form 1C, or authorized health and security personnel. The EC chief added that the postal ballot papers were issued in the presence of representatives of both the contesting candidates and was live-streamed on the EC's Facebook to show the public that it was done in a transparent and fair manner. It is also aimed at enhancing the people's understanding of the election process. He reminded postal voters to mark their ballot papers correctly and return them immediately to the returning officer of the Kimanis parliamentary by-election before 5 p.m. on polling day on January 18th. Voters are also reminded not to take pictures of their postal ballot papers and viral them on the social media, as action can be taken against them. Meanwhile, Warisan's candidate Datuk Karim Bujang stressed that he will ensure villages in the areas of Membakut and Bongawan are not left neglected in terms of development. He said based on his walkabout, there is an urgent need for basic infrastructure projects, especially suspension bridges, gravity water systems and village roads.
Mereka menyatakan tentang beberapa ketidakadaan kemudahan di kawasan perniagaan Pekan Membakut ini. Jadi tengoklah nanti. Saya pun tidak boleh janjikan bulan, bintang dan matahari, kan? We just walk about.
He was speaking during his walkabout around the Membakut district on Sunday. Earlier, in a statement, Sabah Rural Development Minister Dato' Awan Benedict said his ministry will pump in allocations to help resolve the problems faced by the locals in the district. As for the PPRT housing, he said he will forward recommendations to the Membakut Sub-District Office so that the selection process will take into account some of the village homes. Firecrackers worth more than 80,000 ringgit seized in Machang. This and more local stories when we come back. Welcome back. The Kelantan Border Control Agency AXEM seized 84 boxes of firecrackers and fireworks worth 84,000 ringgit at Kampung Bukit Pangkal Gong, Pulai Condong, Machang on Saturday. According to its State Commander Rusli Karim, the contraband was detected after the AXEM Operations Unit spotted a truck parked near a house at midnight. Upon inspection, dozens of boxes of firecrackers and fireworks were found in the truck. It is understood that all the firecrackers and fireworks were smuggled into the country via the Golok River. The 2-ton lorry with the fireworks was taken to the agency's office before it was handed over to the Royal Malaysian Customs Department. Probe is being conducted under the Customs Act 1967. The total value of the loot, including the truck, was about 114,000 ringgit. In Johor, police arrested 2 suspected drug traffickers and seized an assortment of drugs worth almost 290,000 ringgit in 2 separate raids in Johor Bahru on Friday. State Police Chief Dato' Muhammad Kamaruddin Maddin said the 2 suspects, aged 31 and 35, have been remanded until January 8th. Both, however, did not have any record of previous offences. Besides the drugs in the 2 raids, police also seized assets worth 207,400 ringgit, including 2 cars, 3 rings, 2 watches, and 7,000 ringgit, as well as 200 Singapore dollars in cash. The 2 cases are not related, and police are currently investigating their modus operandi. It is understood that the drugs were intended for the local market. Both cases are being investigated under the Dangerous Drugs Act 1952 for drug trafficking. At least 6 killed as car plows into German tourists in Italy. More on this when we return. Welcome back. Onto the foreign front now. Iraq's parliament is set to convene an extraordinary session on Sunday, where lawmakers will push for a vote on a resolution requiring the government to request the withdrawal of U.S. troops from the country. However, some political observers and a number of parliamentarians from Kurdish and Sunnite blocs said it is unlikely to pass the decision of expelling the US forces at the current time for many reasons, with the first reason being the nature of disputes among political blocs, while the second one is that the current government is a caretaker government and could not take such sovereignty decisions. The session was called in the wake of a US drone strike on Friday on a convoy at Baghdad airport that killed Iranian military commander Qasem Soleimani and Iraqi militia leader Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis. To date, around 5,000 US troops remain in Iraq, most of them in an advisory capacity. In Italy, a car plowed into a group of tourists near a popular ski resort town in the northern region of Bolzano on Sunday, killing at least 6 of them and wounding 11 others, with 2 of them in critical condition. According to authorities, the incident took place at around 1 a.m. local time in the Italian town of Luctach in the Amtal Valley. The casualties were German holidaymakers who came to the region on a ski trip. Authorities said the group of 17 tourists were waiting for a bus when the car came speeding into them. It is also understood that the 27-year-old driver of the car, who failed a breath test for alcohol, has been arrested on suspicion of vehicular manslaughter. With that, I'm Raymond Goh. Thank you for tuning in and have a productive week ahead.